Hello and welcome back to Moms Like Me, powered by Support Now. I am so excited for our next conversation with a new friend that we met on good old Instagram. I am joined today by Analeah Kime, and she is going to be sharing more about her journey through infertility and giving birth, as well as having a NICU baby. These topics, as we know, are starting to be talked about more, which is a wonderful thing. And one of the things that we care deeply about at Support Now is really elevating these stories to normalize all the ways that people go through major life moments and all the ways that we can support people through major life moments. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so sorry, Jordan. I have to correct you. It's Analeah.
Analeah, I asked you and then I got it wrong. Analeah, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you did. I'm so glad you did. And we might have a friendly person on the podcast in case a child pops up here, which we love. We love that it's as normal as it gets on a podcast focusing on moms and the everyday realities that we face. So I would love for you to start, honestly, with, frankly, your story and kind of what inspired you to even talk about infertility, loss, and a NICU baby.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for, sharing and for letting us have this platform to share our stories. I think it's really important. I know for me in the beginning, dealing with infertility, I was really... First of all, nobody talked about this, right? And this was like, my journey started about 10 years ago. And I was the only one that I knew that was having issues with this. And so I think it's just so important now to share it, to share my story. In the beginning, I definitely wasn't always open. It was very private thing, a very, intimate thing between me and my husband. We kind of, over the last 10 years, just were back and forth, like trying and then taking a break, trying, taking a break. I think I saw my first infertility doctor in 2014, and that just kind of opened my eyes to all the possibilities that I might be able to have and bring home a child. But I will say I was very naive. I thought that it's funny because I was like, oh, cool. Let's just put 2 in there, have twins, and we're done.
Call it a day.
It's definitely not like that. A lot of things were just coming to terms with what is actually happening. I think the first struggle was just even getting somebody to listen to what was going on with your body. I pretty much always knew that I was going to have trouble having children because I was very irregular. But even early on, doctors would just kind of, oh, well, get on birth control and it'll work itself out. Or maybe I was very athletic. I still am, but maybe once you stop being so athletic and stop running and stop this, then, everything will regulate. So, that was just kind of the beginning of my story. But right before the pandemic, we started revisiting IVF, of course, because it's very expensive, a very expensive procedure. It's definitely not easy. Then the pandemic hit, so everything kind of went on hold. And my husband and I were actually in 2 different states at the time, which is crazy. And then we began going through the IVF process. And again, I think at this point, I was still kind of private about it. I wanted to have that feeling of surprise. Like I wanted to announce, I didn't want it to be a part of my story, to be honest with you. I was like, it's fine, but I didn't want it to define me. I didn't want it to like take over my life. I didn't want to talk about it. But it's not always that simple. And so our first transfer came and went, and I didn't get pregnant. Our second transfer came and went. I didn't get pregnant. Our third transfer came. I got pregnant with twin girls. I had a miscarriage. And that was kind of when things turned on its head a little bit for me. I started to realize that I wouldn't be able to get through it without support and without talking about it. And I always encourage others to reach out, share your story, talk about it. However, I think that everybody gets there in their own time. And I know for me, it was, years and years in, and I physically could not stay quiet about it anymore because everyone was having their children and having their life. And it was so hard for me to show up for them. So it was hard for me to go to baby showers and so on.
I think what you said is so important, though. One of the first questions I think people have is, why didn't you tell me sooner? Or I wish you wouldn't have waited so long. I would have never want you to be this lonely. And what you said, I think a lot of people feel, which is that you don't want that element of surprise, that moment that you've envisioned, that expectation that has been set, both through people and certainly through social media, to be ripped away from you. So it's almost like acknowledging that in and of itself is something that really, I think a lot of women struggle with, because they want that moment. They want that video to share forever and ever. And I think social media, unfortunately, creates more pressure around that moment than ever.
Absolutely.
And to your point, I think that's really, really wise advice to say, do it when you're ready, because when you're ready, you're actually ready to receive this support as well. Because if you do it too soon, you might be more likely to push people away. So that sounds in line. One of my first questions for you, though, given the journey that you were on, how did you and your husband support each other? Because it sounds like you all were very much a team. So how did you all communicate? How did you take care of each other? And what was that relationship like in those years?
So my husband and I, we've been together for almost 10 years now. So I feel like we've had a lot of ups and downs. And so I think in that sense, we were very lucky once we started the IVF journey that our communication had to be really solid. Before that, I feel like the infertility part, everything leading up, we definitely struggled because I wanted it so bad. And I don't think that he could really relate to how it felt, because it's my body. And I felt like I was the problem and I was the burden, and I, couldn't do this for him. I remember an early conversation of me just saying, I understand if you can't be married to me. I understand, because if you want a family and I can't give you that, and it's so weird to think about. But once we started the IVF journey, I think he really saw what I went through, and we moved away from home. I'm from Arizona, and I now live in Oregon. And so it was just me and him. There wasn't a choice, really. And it was a time around the pandemic. So it wasn't I had the ability to reach out to make friends or, so I'm not going to say it's easy. I think that the financial part of IVF is a whole other added stress. And we were not always eye to eye. I feel like because it was my body, I just wanted to go, go, go. Every cycle that failed, okay, I'm ready to do another one. Let's do it. And not that I didn't grieve and mourn my babies or my M babies, but I just wanted to get to the finish line so bad. And my husband was very much maybe you should take a step back. This was really hard on your body. And hearing that from a man, to be honest with you, I'm you don't know. And so that part I think was really hard. But as time went on, as you struggle more and I just learned to lean on him. And I would tell him, I'm having a bad day. I need popcorn, chocolate, and my heating pad. And I'm just going to sit here and cry. And you're just going to have to leave me alone. Or I need hugs, or we really had to navigate that in that way.
One of the things you said that I think is also super, super powerful and important, it's never underestimate that maternal urge. You can go your whole life and not care at all about having kids. And then there's like a switch that's flipped inside of our bodies where it is truly all consuming, where you see a stroller and you want the baby. You see a baby and you want that baby, not that particular one, but babies in general. I think it's really hard for men to understand like how fast that switch can flip and how fierce that emotion can be that really
absolutely.
impacts the way you do everything. And by the way, I don't blame men or husbands, spouses for not getting it. Like it is I believe it is a true maternal urge that like something inside of you is sparked. And then it becomes on us to figure out how do you communicate that and how do you work through that conflict that you're feeling. And I personally can relate to that as well, where I didn't care about having kids until I did. And then once you do, it's all you can think about. It's all that you want. And it is very hard and difficult to communicate that. And what you're saying is so important because the quicker you figure out how to communicate how this desire is getting in the way of how you process everything else and how you respond to everything else, the sooner you can actually be on the same team together.
It is like, sorry, hang on one second.
It's okay. We love a surprise guest on Moms Like Me. That's wonderful.
You love a Luca cameo here?
The impressions of this podcast is going to go way up now.
His hair is so funny. He actually has a helmet right now and he's on a helmet break. And so his hair like sticks up because the helmet doesn't cover this middle part. And so it's
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Welcome to Moms Like Me, Luca. We were finishing up really about talking about the importance of supporting one another. You know, when there's there's more often than not a disconnect between husbands and wives when you're ready, and how important it is to try to get on the same page and communicating, so that you can really be there for each other.
Yeah, and I do agree. It's just like this sort of tunnel vision. And all of a sudden, I just feel like I couldn't see anything else. The financial burden was really hard. And so when your medical decisions are kind of taking over your, I just think that was the most difficult part. Not the most difficult, but that was a strain for sure on a relationship because you have to be on the same page with that.
So tell me what happened after the miscarriage of the twins. What was your timeline? How did you approach? You had talked about earlier about how you were one, which I think is common to say, okay, this didn't work, I'm on to the next. How did it feel in that moment? How much longer did you take, or did you take much more time?
After I miscarried the twins, it was like full stop. So first of all, while I was going through my miscarriage, I got COVID. And so it just wrecked my body because I was already compromised. I ended up losing a lot of blood and things were like delayed because I had COVID. And so it was a lot of suffering, to be totally honest with you. It was really hard because it was, during COVID and it was just difficult to get seen. And then I was very, very sick because I, lost a lot of blood. So after that, I needed to kind of get some strength back. And I had like blood infusions and all sorts of things before they would even consider doing another transfer, which is great. It's not great to hear in the moment, but it's great. I do recognize that you put your body through a lot. So after that, I did take some time. I took like 5 months and then I went for it again, like as soon as I could. And then I got pregnant again. And then I lost that baby at 13 weeks. And that one was just, I think it started to feel like it wasn't going to happen at that point. And I started to feel the shift in my support system. It was like getting more difficult to talk about because I felt even more like a burden to my family and friends. Like as I was going through these miscarriages, people would come see me to support me. they would, send gifts, and I just felt like a broken record. And I didn't know. I think that's when I started to not know how to use my people and how to be supported and how to speak up. And everything just kind of flipped and I just isolated.
Wow.
I really was in a not great place. And I ended up like booking a random trip and just kind of like reconnecting with myself. Like I booked a solo trip. I should say I have a really great supportive family and I have a really close group of friends. They are the ones who like sent me to Georgia to do this like solo trip. Everyone thought I was crazy, but just reconnecting with myself. And it was really hard to know how to be supported by people, especially because I felt like when I would talk about it, I could feel their concern. I could feel their sadness and their stress. And I know that it hurt them. I know that it hurt them that I was going through this. I know that it hurt them that they couldn't do anything about it. And I just felt like everyone wanted me to stop. Just like, okay, well, maybe we can adopt or can we? And I think it comes from a really great place because I was hurting, but it made it really difficult for me because then I felt everybody's emotions.
I want to pause you there, though, because I think that this is a tendency that all humans have, which is we just want to so quickly fix things because we're so uncomfortable in the pain or the sadness of someone we love. And it comes from a very good place.
Absolutely.
And that's not actually what most people are seeking.
Yeah, or like the need to like fix. And that was just really hard. And I didn't have the words, right? I didn't have the words to say what I needed or what. It was hard. And plus, like at my age, like everybody's having kids, right? So it's a very isolating experience. And I think that throughout my journey through infertility, through IVF, through the NICU, now it kind of goes in and out. I mean, it's a roller coaster and it's very lonely. And I feel like you reach a point where you can lean on people. And then in my experience, it's like I kind of have the responsibility there just because you don't have the words. I would just rather not use the energy to explain and just isolate.
So you went to Georgia, you came back, and when did you try again?
I came back and it was a really weird, like I had just like the best time, just soul searching. And I came back and for some reason, I found like a lot of peace when I was there. And I just felt like I was going to do it again and that I was going to be okay with the outcome. And I started to try to imagine a life where it didn't look the way I thought it would. And I think that was the hardest part is like you have this expectation of your future and it started to feel like, okay, this actually might be different. And so I started to like focus on getting a promotion at my job, or I started to try and find something else because I feel like you can add so much value to the world as a woman. I was asking myself, what value, can I add here? And so I started to just imagine a different life. I always tell people it was always felt to me like I was like preparing for like battle because I would kind of like shut out the world. I think it was like no gossip, no like trash TV, no like just because I wanted to like only have this like different energy and stuff like that around me. And this is not to say that this works at all because
Disclaimer.
yeah,
No promises, right?
disclaimer, this does not work. But it was like me preparing, like for this next step. And so I would eat the food, drink the teas, go to the acupuncture twice a week. Like it was exhausting. So I went to my next one and I felt really good. So up until this point, I feel like even advocating for yourself and your health, especially in IVF, especially in like women's health, is really difficult thing to do because I don't know what I don't know. And so people are always like, listen to your body and advocate for yourself. And then you feel really bad because you really don't know how. And so I'm like, is my body broken? Like, why can't I understand what it needs? For my fifth cycle, I started to like really tune in. I felt really good. I told the doctor, like, this is it. Like, this is absolutely it. I can feel it. Last minute, it ended up being like a different doctor who did my transfer. And I don't know how other people's experiences, but for me, it's like if one thing's a little different than I had envisioned, it kind of throws me off. So it threw me for a loop. And then he ended up being like hilarious. And like, it was actually like a lot of fun, which sounds weird, but we were like laughing and it felt really light and I felt really, really good. And it didn't work. So I got it. That one was a chemical pregnancy. And I was like, okay, this sucks because I really thought it was it. I felt it in my body. I did the soul searching. I did the teas. I did all of that. But I did feel really good. So I told the doctor was like, at this point, you go to a different doctor, you get a second opinion. Like, I feel like and I was like, no, let's try it one more time. Just because I felt really good. And it felt like it was going to work. And I didn't test my embryos ahead of time. So I really feel like it was just not good embryo, pretty much. So she agreed. I have a uterine anomaly. So I had a procedure where they kind of made more space in my uterus for a potential fetus to grow. Again, I did the teas, everything. I was very vocal about it online. My people rallied behind me. I really was like in tune, asking for help, all of that. By this point, I had kind of created a community of other women who were going through the same thing. And that was really helpful. Like, I would have coffee dates with another friend who was doing IVF and, just kind of like commiserate. And I let myself watch the trash TV. I let myself just like have fun. Because I knew like, this is it. Like, that was my very last time. Like, I couldn't do it again. It was just my poor husband and my body, everything. We went into my sixth transfer and I got pregnant. The strange thing is when you've had so many transfers and so much loss is I feel like people don't know how to receive you because they're scared. It was kind of a bummer that I didn't get my surprise moment. And I actually felt nervous to tell people because I didn't want them to worry and I didn't want the worry to manipulate my feelings. I kept it kind of to myself longer than I did the others, but not very long still. I'm not good at secrets. I got a subchorionic hematoma again. And so I bled pretty much first 15 weeks of my pregnancy. Weren't sure if Luca was going to make it. And it was just, stressful. And then, we kind of got over the hump. I had a few weeks of just pure bliss. I was happy to be pregnant. I wasn't bleeding. I, shared on socials. I was like taking all the pictures I wanted. I was just really soaking up being pregnant, just appreciating the glow. And I felt the magic, that I had hoped for and that all moms talk about. And it was very brief. My belly had just started showing and it was around this time last year. So I will say like this year I could like almost feel it in the air. Like I could feel it. And I look back on pictures and I'm like, gosh, I like had no idea what was coming. And then my water broke at 23 weeks. That was the start of my birth journey and my NICU journey.
And look at you now.
Yeah. Now I'm juggling this little guy. Yeah. So from there, I stayed in the hospital. My water broke, which I didn't know that a baby could actually survive once the water breaks. I thought that meant labor, because pretty much my like knowledge of giving birth, I guess, was just on TV. So like I didn't have time to read the books or ask the questions.
Sure. Sure.
I was so focused on getting pregnant that I like, never really got that far to ask the questions. But I stayed in the hospital. They admitted me. It was an out of body experience. It really was. Like I couldn't figure out if it was really happening. I know that like sounds odd. It was like not happening to me. Like it felt like so when you get admitted to the hospital, it's like immediately you're told the most horrific scenarios that you can imagine. Um, and it's like you're going to have to make these very difficult decisions. And if your baby is born right now, this is what it might look like. This is what might like happen. This is what problems they might face. Do you want to continue? And I really appreciate the way, and I don't know if I'm assuming they do this at all hospitals, but I don't know. I appreciated that along the way, I was constantly asked that, like, do you want to continue? Do you want to continue? But man, that's a hard thing to hear. Like, after everything, I couldn't believe that this could potentially be the end of my story, right? Like,
I think your story is so, so powerful. And I think it reflects so much of what so many women and moms go through and never talk about because it's just too hard. And so, first of all, I want to say thank you for actually like telling this part of the story because it is important. All the false starts, the feeling and the thinking, this is it. And I think it goes to show you that you can't. There is no perfect formula for this. Some people are lucky and some people are less fortunate when it comes to getting pregnant and having healthy pregnancies. And again, kind of getting out of our own way of thinking that it's going to be a certain way. It's going to be the way that it's designed to be and accepting that. It sounds like you had to learn to accept that this was the journey that you were on. And I like smile because I see you now feeding this child. And it fills me with joy. And I think it's so representative that there's hope and you can't give up despite all the setbacks that you had to overcome. I mean, it's really amazing. And I hope you're so proud of yourself.
oh, I'm so proud of myself. And I will say, like, around the giving up, I just want to put one more thing in that is that I think people have different ideas of what giving up is. And it might be that you reach your limit with IVF or you reach your limit with, whatever you're going through and you choose to pivot. And I would never see that as a giving up. It's that acceptance piece. And I think that is something that I really struggled with throughout the journey is like, what, I'm just going to give up. And it wasn't until the very end of my IVF journey when I realized like, maybe it's time to pivot. And that's not going to feel like a failure to me. It's going to feel like I'm still not giving up because I'm sharing my story and because I'm helping other women and because like your story changes. And if you decide not to go through with your IVF or to stop or whatever it is, I hope no one ever feels like it was a failure.
I think that's also a really good perspective. Just because things they don't go the way you expect, but if you have to change course, don't make it feel like failure. It's just a way of moving forward. I think that's so powerful. I want to be so respectful of your time and all that you are juggling and balancing. Thank you. Thank you so much. As you know, this is at the core of what we believe in as well, and how to support people in all the ways that matter. And you touched on some things that people can do. You touched on some things that people shouldn't do. And it all goes towards this greater conversation around community and better understanding how people are really feeling in times of crisis. So I want to thank you, and I'm so excited to continue to follow your journey on Instagram. If people want to find you on social, where should they look?
I'm on Instagram at Analeah Haha, and it's Analeah ANALEAHAAHA.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. We are so happy that you have that precious baby in your arms today, and look forward to more conversations and watching him grow and watching you grow alongside of it. So thank you for joining us today.
So thank you. Take care.